Hey fans, so today Premier Pro Wrestling recognizes, remembers, reminisces about the WCW, NWA actually slash WCW tag team Doom. Now I'm going to go ahead and do, a Black Wrestlers You Should Know episode about Butch Reed. I'm going to do another one about Ron Simmons. But Doom was such a iconic tag team at the time that they deserved to be, remembered together as that separate character. First, they were managed by Chris Benoit's wife. And then right now what I'm going to read to you is how Teddy Long, and you guys probably know Teddy Long from WWE, ended up being their manager. Now this is from Ron Simmons. On Teddy Long becoming the manager for Doom and WCW. I still don't know what happened. Butch and I were together. We walk in there one day, and all of a sudden here comes this little Weasley-looking guy with a do-rag on his head. And all of a sudden he comes up and says, "Hey, here's what we're going to do right in this interview." Butch and I are looking at each other like, "What the hell are you talking about? When did you get in here?" He was like, "What, they didn't tell you? I'm going to be your manager now." And you know how Butch is. He says, "Man, you ain't going to be managing me. You get out of here." That's pretty funny how it started off rocky like that and ended up gelling to be a great freaking money-drawing unit. And believability off the chain. Ron Simmons on teaming with Butch Reed. I'm not exactly sure that Butch was really on board with it to begin with. I think he still wanted to go and do his singles thing a little more at that point. And I could see he was still having reservations about doing it when they first came and proposed it to me. Of course I was on board with it because it's Butch Reed. And he's had some level of success in this business. This is a great opportunity for me right out of the gate. It came out that first they wanted to make it a little bit too racial. And this is what I love, guys. This is Ron Simmons, even as you can hear that he's a green guy trying to hone the craft. And that's a whole head trip because he comes from a sports background. But on top of that, he was such a bad motherfucker. But he still had that open-mindedness and willingness because he knew at the end of the day, if he could learn everything he could and learn how to implement everything that he could, he would be a success and make money. So at first, they wanted to make it a little bit too racial. They wanted to name them the Ebony Express. Can you believe, or can you imagine if they would have named it the Ebony Express? It wouldn't have meant shit. It would have just been silly. It would have just been token stuff. That was something that Butch and I vehemently said, "No, man." And I love that because Butch had such experience in the industry, and I can't wait to delve into some of the hurdles that he jumped to become, a mainstream star. We don't want to go there and try to play this race thing. If we're going to do this thing, we want to go out there and be these two characters that are good at what we do. That was one thing that had corrected to start out with. If it had been along those lines, you'd have to continue along those lines of playing the racist thing. If you're going to break these barriers, you have to start somewhere. So we felt this wasn't good for both of us at the time, and I'm really glad that we did that. And that is outstanding because you can see so many guys that fell into that racial token thing that were never taken serious again. At the end of the day, man, this is 1989, 1990, where I was aware of Doom. But when I was on the road, and I was on the road during that time for Memphis and USWA, and we were doing 3,000 miles a week, wrestling up to 8 times a week, I didn't get a lot of exposure to it. There wasn't time to watch what was going on, but even I at that point knew the impact of that tag team because even the boys were talking about it down in Memphis. What WCW originally wanted to call the team. Secondly, we had to come up with what we're going to be named. The Road Warriors were already a Legion of Doom, and we were going to be working with them. So they decided they were just going to call us Doom. At that point, that's how it came together. And that's when I got together with Butch. It was a big thrill for me. Sometimes he and I didn't see eye to eye. We had our ups and downs on the road because Butch is his own man. He sure as shit is. You always knew where you stood. That's what I loved about him. Respect, I loved that too. He was very helpful when it came to tag team skill, so I learned a lot from Butch that time we were together. It was unbelievable. The best thing about it at that point in tag team wrestling, you couldn't ask for a better period to be in a tag team. You had the Rock and Roll Express. You had all these guys you could work with, Barbarian, Warlord, and the Road Warriors, the Steiner brothers. It was absolutely phenomenal. That's the best thing I loved about it. You could get in there, work the way I think it should be, sort of killing someone, but working to the point where people understood, hey, this guy's really in a wrestling match. It was a phenomenal period of time, and I really loved working with all those guys. And Ron, if you ever hear this, we really loved watching it, even as the boys, even as workers, even as wrestlers. The thing about it was at the time, undeniable draws were the tag teams he mentioned, specifically the Steiner brothers and specifically the Road Warriors. But you couldn't go out there, and the Road Warriors and the Steiners knew it. Unless you were a badass, they couldn't really have a match with you. Not anything with long legs, and you can check the length of the angles and the storylines. They knew that the more over and the more rough and tumble and believable that they were, that equated into bigger paychecks. So really putting Simmons and Butch Reed together as Doom, that was a great era for wrestling, for tag team wrestling. And if you notice, if you check the records, you know, right after that era, that period, tag team wrestling kind of died down. And even to this day, you know. Now, the Usos, it's a whole different thing, and it's starting to come along. But they put so much time and money into developing it, and it's working. But, you know, WWE would be much better off even today with formidable tag teams that could work angles and storylines, and more than just one or two of them, you know, with the Usos, if that's the horses that they're picking to ride. And at this point, let's face it, those guys are footing the bill. So once again, we haven't seen anything like Doom since, and we didn't see anything like Doom prior. They were real trailblazers at the time for the black wrestler. So we're going to do, like I said, again, one for Butch and one for Ron Simmons. But today, Premier Pro Wrestling, black wrestlers you should know, the tag team of Doom, managed by Teddy Long. Don't forget, please note that this is being streamed to you guys right on YouTube without any YouTube ads or commercials. So please like, subscribe while you're here. Support Premier Pro Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Tees, and Premier Pro Wrestling. Stream our content on Pivot Share. Thanks. I hope you guys are enjoying these. I sure as hell am.